everyone, Miss Carrie here from Miss Carrie's Creations. Today I'm going to be sharing a scrapbook page I created for Not Just for Boys Kit Club that features some fire station photos that we took during our trip to Disney. I'm going to be using a few components from the Limitless kit today. I shared all of the lovely items that come in this kit in a recent video. If you missed it, I will add a link above so that you can take a look at what comes in this kit. For this 8.5 by 11 page, I'm going to be recording a memory from our trip. This was a photo taken on Main Street, so I'm going to be using this pattern with the vintage trucks. And I'm also going to be using this plaid pattern. Both come from the Limitless kit. I will also be adding some bits of the ephemera pack and letter stickers to bring in some neutral tones. Off to the side, I have a mix of theme park items from my stash that I'm also going to be adding to this layout. Like I said, the vacation album is an 8.5 by 11 album, so I've already cut down some of the patterns for this page, and I'm starting to lay out a few of the elements. I've backed my page in a deep gray blue, which I'm also going to use to frame the photo. And that's going to help draw your eye to the focal point of the page. At the top third of the page, I have added the plaid pattern, and I've placed that vintage truck paper at the base of the page. I like it when layouts are divided into thirds because it helps to create a nice balance. I'm using a page maps sketch today. I find that sketches are a great jumping off point when your brain has no direction to go. To bring in a neutral tone and bring out the gold color on the fire engine, I've placed some craft colored paper from my stash behind the photo. I want to add a vertical journaling strip, so I'm just digging through the ephemera pack right now and trying to decide which of these looks better on the layout. There's quite a few elements here that would work for journaling. The story is going to be typed out on the die cut, so I don't want it to have too busy of a background. The sketch shows a strip of paper between the two patterns, so I've grabbed some leftover bits from the back of that vintage truck paper, and I'm going to be placing these across the page. This pattern has both some blue and gray hues, and the gray goes really well with that acrylic shape I've selected. Before I adhere everything down, I'm going to go type up my journaling. I'm going to do that off camera and add a little bit of stitching to the page for texture, and then I'll start adding my embellishments. I have gathered a mix of theme park items for my page so that I can add them to the layout. There are multiple theme park collections in my craft space, and I've just pulled pieces from various kits that match the theme of my page. Even though this photo is of a fire engine in a fire department, the theme of the layout actually revolves around our Disney trip. So I want to make sure that I not only add some fire engine type items, but also theme park elements as well. I'm starting with a camera at the top and a phrase that says Main Street because that's where we were at. Now I want to bring some of the black and red colors down to that acrylic phrase. So I'm going to add this die cut and a little frame piece that almost looks like an arrow. To create the look of a tab next to the photo, I'm going to cut a piece off of this frame and I'm going to add it to the right side of the photo. Now that I have two areas with red, I need to add a third. So I'm going to bring in some more of that color palette to the lower portion of the journaling card with just a couple of little flags. Now you could also use the little tickets or tags that come in the ephemera kit, or you could cut these from some of your pattern papers. I'm going to adhere these two die cuts together, and I need to trim down the little red die cut because it's a little bit too big for that arrow frame. Now I thought I would like the arrow to be open, but when I lay it down on the page, there are two patterns showing behind it. So I'm going to go grab a scrap of that stripe pattern paper, and I'm going to glue this in place. Now, once that is glued in place, you can see it's bringing some of that pattern down to this area, and it's bringing in some more of the gray color that matches that acrylic shape. This photo is rather special to me. For many years, my husband was a medic firefighter. So when we go to museums or parks with fire stations or vintage fire trucks, they have a different meaning for him. On Disney's Main Street, the station had a vintage truck, some older fire equipment, and some badges that were framed. And these came from many of the other fire stations around the United States. My husband spent quite a bit of time admiring the different badges and looking at some of the items on display. For me, it was a magical moment to see him remembering a time in his life when this was a part of who he was. So I've gone ahead and laid a few more items on my page, and I'm really not a fan of the yellow circle on the camera. I don't have that color anywhere else on my layout, and it's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. Now I could try to add some more yellow to the page, but instead I'm going to cover it up with a black and white phrase that I cut out from some pattern paper using a die. Now it can be difficult to line up dies with pattern papers, so here's what I like to do. I like to cut the shape from a piece of scrap paper, and then I line up the cutout with my pattern paper. I use some repositionable tape to hold that cutout in place, and then I just drop the die over the top. It fits right into the cutout, and it's all lined up with the phrase, and I can just go ahead and run it through my die cutting machine, and it cuts it out perfectly. Now, when this is placed over a black sticker, it takes away the yellow on the camera, and it also gives me an opportunity to add a little dimension to this die cut. I'm going to finish building the title here using those wood thicker letters and the sticker that says Main Street USA. At this point, I'm feeling like the area above the journaling is a little plain, but I don't want to add too much here because I need some breathing room on my page. When you're creating a smaller layout, you don't want to fill every space. So I'm just going to bring in a little mouse head and keep it really simple. Since this story is about Main Street, I'm going to add another sticker to this area of the page, which brings in a fourth black and white element to the design. I do like odd numbers, so I'm going to bring in a fifth little piece, and now my title says Fun Station Main Street USA. I do want to bring in a few more circles, so I'm grabbing some metal adhesive brads and adding them to the page. And then I realized that the only gray element I have on that page was the acrylic piece. So I'm going to add a few more gray elements to balance that out. I'm going to finish this off with some dark gray dots from that Limitless kit, and I'm just going to group these in threes around various elements to bring in more of that color and give you some landing points on the page. This page was inspired by that awesome vintage truck pattern and a sketch. I was able to use a mix of elements in my theme park collection along with a lot of items from that Limitless kit to create a page of a vacation memory. I know that this is not a traditional way to use some of the patterns and elements in the Limitless kit, but I love being able to show you different ways to use items that you have in your collection. We all have bits and pieces left over from projects, so why not mix them in with some of your Not Just for Boys Club kits and create a really fun layout. I hope that this project gave you a few ideas for using the elements in the Limitless kit and inspired you to try something new. If you have any questions about the project I created today or the supplies I listed below, feel free to leave me a comment. I hope that you have a wonderful week, and I can't wait to see what you create.